Meanwhile, tonight the community is remembering 71 homeless people who have passed away this year, including a baby just 5 months old. Eyewitness News reporter Roxy Bustamante has more on the memorial and how a local group is stepping up to help.
Downtown on West Commerce Street at Milam Park, there's a message of hope.
It takes humans in action to treat others the way we wish to be treated ourselves.
A warm meal not everyone is fortunate to have.
And it was started by SAMMinistries 13 years ago to bring attention and awareness to what happens to homeless people, because the mortality rates of homeless people is significantly higher.
This year in San Antonio, 71 people died without a place to call home. That's 3 more deaths compared to last year. Tonight, each name was written on a stone.
There are homeless people that are alive here in San Antonio that know these people and that are friends with them and acquaintances and some relatives. So it's important too to bring attention to the fact that this is a public issue.
Honoring the lives lost while SAMMinistries continues to work around the clock to help the hundreds more who are struggling to survive.
Homelessness is very serious here in San Antonio and across the nation. And by sort of recognizing and remembering those that passed away, I think we give it more attention.
SAMMinistries says they are in need of volunteers and donations, especially during these cold winter months, to help those survive. Now you can find more information on how you can help. Just go to our website, KENS5.com. Reporting downtown, Roxy Bustamante, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.